Hello, welcome to Graphic Policy Radio, a podcast at the intersection of mutant rights and movements for social change. This is your host, Ilana Levin, and this is a comics animation podcast. This is the comics animation podcast for people who have started to wonder if maybe those sea people were really the X-Men. No, it is true. What if this pesky seafaring people responsible for the Bronze Age collapse were just the X-Men all along? It stands to reason based on X-Men 97 Season 2, which is the topic of today's episode of our podcast. I'm so excited to be back to nerd out about X-Men 97, an animated series that I have really loved. When we covered Season 1, the guest who joined me for the final episode of our season, it was my friend Ethan Gould, who is joining me now to cover the start of this season. And so right now we're covering the first half of Season 1, and then I'll be talking. I will be recording a different episode for the rest of the season after this. But there's just so much rich, entertaining, animated, glorious, gooey goodness. I just had to bring back a fellow X-Men fan who also happens to be an artist and a storyteller and an animator. In fact, I'll read you Ethan's actual bio, which I have in front of my face right now. Ethan Gould is a New York artist and writer. His work has appeared in print, in galleries, on television, and off Broadway. His most recent project is the Sometimes Kingdom RPG, a tabletop game exploring what labor means as an adventurer in a modernizing high fantasy world, out now from Stillfleet Studio. You can find him online and soon on Patreon under the handle Spectral House, Spectral House, or as we've been known to say, Spectral House.
Spectral House.
Welcome back to the show,
Hi.
Ethan. I was excited to begin texting with you about this show when it came back on the air, and then I was like, "Oh, you got to just come back and talk with me about it when we're ready to record." So for listeners who haven't listened to Season 1 coverage from the show, you know, Ethan and I are both longtime X-Men fans and fans of the TV series. I actually went and did a full rewatch of the entire X-Men 90s series from my youth in between last time and now. So it's been interesting looking at this in context of a show that was, you know, definitely intended for a more youthful audience than some of what we see here. To give a quick spoiler-free overview to our listeners, would you say if people enjoyed Season 1, they should watch Season 2 and then give this a listen? Does that sound about right to you?
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty fair to say.
Okay, and doesn't every now and then there'll be a show that we cover on the show, and somebody will be like, "Actually, this season is way worse," or something, which has happened with for Peacemaker, for example.
Oh, that's too bad.
I still enjoyed it, but Magneto Toro made a reasonable argument against it. So yes, folks, if you haven't seen Season 2, go watch it and then join us, because we're just going to go full spoilers as we traverse all the X-Men time travel shenanigans, as well as side quests that draw from Wolverine, spin-off comics and the like. And then you'll come back with us when we talk about all the jaw-dropping reveals that happened this season. But let's start with a Days of Future.
Yeah.
Time travel. Yeah.
I gotta say that, like, the writers' room is doing really pretty impressive work consistently, at least the first half of the season, the same as they did the Season 1, of synthesizing decades of very extremely convoluted runs, finding, thematics and threads, and sort of boiling it down to 10 episodes and now another 5. So good work on that front. I feel like, as is the case often with something with so much continuity, even with such a streamlined thing as the first season, the second season, now that we're in time travel-y wavel-y, where it's starting to get a little woolly. And I couldn't stop thinking about the Aqua Teen Hunger Force, Duck Cyborg, the Days of Future Past Future coming for them. Just like, I don't know what's happening anymore. And I read the original run.
Oh man, the Ghost of the Ghost of Cybernetic Turkey's past.
Yes.
Future. Yeah, that joke never gets old. I'm never tired of talking about its sleek turkey body from traveling through the time stream. So that is how I felt watching this. But we had half of the team sent to the future, and that was Cyclops and Phoenix and other characters like Storm. And the other half of the team goes back to ancient, quote, Egypt, quote. And that's the Charles and Eric and Rogue and Nightcrawler team. And I think we'll kind of talk about these beginning of this season in a split way. Like we'll talk about the future and then we'll talk about the past. So let's start about the adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix, which is the source material for a lot of the future stories. I was just cracking up because I kept looking and poking my spouse in the shoulder, expecting him to realize who that hooded figure was. And at no point did he, which I think is very funny in and of itself. But yes, but that was Rachel Summers, the Ascani, her kind of like butch mullet rat tail hair situation.
Yeah, would you call it sort of a soft butch, or is she like leaned into it enough at that point that it's like, nope, we're going?
It still feels like it's a soft butch, like rat tail, flat top combination of the future. I mean, she's stuck a look she's kept it even into the distant future, and she's become sort of a spiritual guide to the future. It's, you know, obviously when you have powers like hers, you can see how she ends up being sort of the matriarch to these future nomads. But I always am a little bit like, who decided you, in this case, Nathan Summers, the child, are the chosen one who will save the future people? There's no time to explain any of that, and that's okay, but we're just going to roll with it. I mean, I think that,
listen, if your version of meditating is sitting lotus position upside down, floating in the air and on fire just to show off, I feel like, okay, maybe that could be a parlor trick, but I think that indicates some cognizance. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's just her.
That's how we all meditate. It's true.
It's true.
So, you know, like it was interesting. I like that the series foregrounded the rest of the season's time with Nathan, where we see him, you know, bring together X-Force by having the story of his childhood, which does a great job of showing why a Nathan is like that in a way, right?
Yeah.
Because his parents only got to raise him for a couple weeks.
I think in the original run they spend the full like a decade or more like actually doing right by him, but I think they don't. I'm going to some dim and distant memories here, like, but they don't reveal that they're his parents, so to keep the time stream, or just for
they don't reveal it.
Assholes, I don't know.
They're red and slim. There's so much, you know. But going back to my spouse actually said he was described the who knows what about which timeline and who knows who is what in which timeline that goes on both of these time travel storylines as basically being a comedy of manners. And right? Yeah. That just struck me as incredibly astute. So he might not know who Rachel Summers is, but he does know his literary devices. And because that actually is the right way to think about all of this sort of chatter behind the backs of, you know, Nathan on one hand and Apocalypse on the other, of what's each person's agenda, what is their real identity, and what do you get to tell them. And whenever you seem to try to, and I understand the like continuity reasons why people feel like they have to conceal their identity, but it seems like it's always backfiring. It never works.
It never works. Or, you know, there's a Deus Ex Machina or something at the end, and then, you know, all shall be well. You know, the people get together, all the couples that need to at the end of the Shakespearean drama, like couple off. Mm-hmm. You know, the goddess of so and so goes back to whatever, and everything works out. But in this case, that goddess is the mother Ascani, Rachel Summers, or Rachel. What is
Rachel Ascani?
Rachel Ascani, Summers.
Sure.
Yeah, and a couple more. It's a lot of hyphenates. So I like that framing of it as a comedy of manners, because it's like, oh, you know, cause we can think of contemporary X-Men as in 97 as like the telenovela, and then of course if you're going into the Days of Future Past Future, well then it's going to be a literary form of the same thing, so it's going to be a comedy of manners. Yeah.
And you know, and I the whole season, this whole first half of the season really does set up like Nathan, whose mission is to destroy Apocalypse, and Apocalypse is really parallels to each other, and I think in a way that's very powerful. I mean, we see that poor baby Apocalypse abandoned in the desert by his mom is like, you know, I don't even like babies, and I was like, oh, that poor baby.
It sucks.
It's compelling, and you're like, you know, and Nathan, you get to see him sort of struggling with this burden of leadership that's placed on him. And of course, my point would all be like, well, why is he, if he doesn't want to be in charge, does he have to be in charge? And of course, the show illustrates why, because you have this contrast where while Apocalypse immediately like dooms all of these people when he gets his Apocalypse powers, and Magneto has to go save them, himself dying in the process. The first thing Nathan does when he gets his powers is like he frees the people who are like toiling around him, who've been imprisoned by Apocalypse. Like his first act is to be a liberator. But it is still sort of funny looking at someone who's literally a child and being like, oh yes, all those adults should definitely follow that child.
Yeah, well, he's the oh god, he's the chosen one, which is always
He's a chosen one.
It's the first season took a lot of disparate elements and out of it crafted a very strong and cogent, I don't necessarily want to say political argument, but maybe an ethical argument.
Sure.
Up until the point where it is about trying to turn bad people, to the point where they're even at the very end of it doing it with the masterful Theo James, a bastion as he goes berserk in space, and they don't quite succeed. And in this one, it's sort of like I felt like it got really convoluted because you're dealing with predestination, which is always this really difficult concept to deal with, both like in genre fiction and also from a moral perspective. And then it's sort of like conclusion by the end of part one is sort of like, this person is basically just bad. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess they tried and now there's essential evil. Or is it going back to the original amazing, lines from like, what is it, John Colicos from the first run of it in the original 90s X-Men, where he says like, I am not evil, I merely am. And Apocalypse is just hurt that somebody would think that he's evil. He's simply beyond such things. So it's like in this case now, is it like people dealing with moral catastrophe because there is a force that is beyond them? Or are they deciding that, nope, this is an inherent evil in the timeline? I don't know. It gets into some really hairy ethics after the first season's clear through line trying to make sense out of a bunch. And I'm not saying that it's bad. It certainly is different.
Yes, exactly. Like it was so much easier to put together a coherent. I'm about to repeat everything you said. Exactly what you said. 100% co-sign.
Repeat it. No, that's great.
No, and I think that is one of the challenges I have in talking about this season. Like I'm loving this season just as much, but it is like these little, and I especially, and we'll talk about it later, I'm super duper obsessed with the most recent episode, the Sex, Lies, and Videotapes. Well, it's not actually called that, but that episode, put a pin in that. We'll get to that later. We're talking about this earlier section first, but I'm loving it. But like, yeah, it's hard to decide what exactly it wants us to think, and maybe that's okay. But I like, this inclination. Like, of course, Magneto wants to try to find a way to help Apocalypse become an avatar for Xavier's dream, because we've seen the alternatives not working, and like they already are so far outside the bounds of the butterfly effect. Like, why not just
yeah,
right? Like,
it's like the Futurama line, just like, oh, screw continuity.
Yeah, exactly. At that point. So, I like that there sort of is this complicated child rearing debate going on between Apocalypse and Professor X over their very large child that they've discovered in the desert who may kill everybody. I guess it's probably a good practice for them before they combine and turn into Onslaught together. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's a parenting conflict they're having there. And I do find that the way Apocalypse goes from believing one of them to believing the other one of them really rapidly, like he's sort of trying on different mentors or different ethical approaches almost.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I gotta say, like, I think just in terms of performance, I think that's really, selling even some of the hairier kind of like ideas about predestiny and good and evil in the show. Like, Adetta Combo McCormack is just doing such an amazing job. Like I loved his work also with Theo James on Castlevania, playing Isaac, another character who is trying to figure out what good and evil is. Bringing like this gravitas to a role. Like I've always loved the seriousness of original flavor X-Men, and I'm glad to see it back. And I feel like bringing that gravity to it like adds such a heft to a bunch of people banging around in an alternate reality Egypt, altered by a super science and John Delancey.
Yes, John Delancey, who plays Q in this Star Trek, it is inspired having him play that bastard Kang the Conqueror, because these are like the same fucking guy. And the idea that in one world, John Delancey is this like all powerful, time manipulating, bored life form who just shows up to hit on Patrick Stewart.
And now Stewart.
Here he is now, and he's just hitting on Professor X, and you're like, it's not that Professor X. This isn't Patrick Stewart. It's the wrong Professor X. Please leave him alone.
Yeah, you got the wrong universal designate number. This is not,
exactly the wrong. Yes, and it's a delightful performance. I thought that the Kang reveal. Well, here's the question. I mean, you knew it was Kang because you know it's Ramatut. I know it's Ramatut. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think people who don't know who Ramatut knew it was Kang, maybe, until he began talking about being whether the slave or the conqueror will be freed. That I think maybe was a sign to them of who it might be.
Right. And I think it's also like, for me, well, they actually they did, all fan service checkboxes checked off for me, specifically Ethan, when they had Ramatut / Kang / Q, Ramaquat, say, he's like, I think he said something like, "You're going to be so surprised," which is a Q line. Like, it was perfect.
Oh yes. I mean, he also was like trolling his assistant about her future is going to be something more external, and she's just like, the who, the what? Because she doesn't know what that means, and it's a hard line to have to react against. I'm like, okay, so I guess she's going to be one of the externals.
Yeah. I cannot recall, she might have been in an episode in the original X-Men run. I think that there was an entanglement.
You mean of the TV show?
The TV show, yeah, and then So a younger relative and I during the back half of the still ongoing pandemic were at the appropriate age watched through the entirety of the original run of the X-Men 90s show on Disney Plus, and the timing of it was kind of perfect because they just aged out of it at exactly the moment, like in the final season, where the show starts getting really off the rails and nobody wants to be there anymore. I'm like, perfect.
Yeah. The show's getting bad, and I have a date now. Goodbye. It's like, but yeah, what did you think about the character design for Apocalypse, both in his Egyptian guise and in his sort of asking you about the aesthetics and the approach?
Oh, the aesthetics of it. I mean, it's so funny because it's sort of like the idea. This is really funny watching this with my spouse, who is very enthusiastic about the show. Did not grow up reading the comics and did not watch the original run of the show. But so their entry point into this has mostly been the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the accompanying, TV shows, etc. Thinking about like the sort of like artistic motifs, like walking in and it's sort of like telegraphing that it's something celestial and knowing what that means because of, various things. I'm like, wow, okay, I guess, transmedia stuff really does work in terms of world building familiarity. I'm like, because that's you start seeing like intersecting circles and you're like, okay, is it going to be the Eternals? Is it going to be the Externals? Is it going to be the Celestials? Or is it going to be Doctor Strange? And the answer is just the Celestials, because that's where his powers come from. But I think aesthetically it was great. And it was, again, kind of cool to see like animated that moment of him turning from this strong man who fights in Egypt to a man who is, or an entity who is no neck and 90% gel. I really enjoyed it. I thought that the voice transition from Adeno Combo McCormack to Ross Marquand, and I thought that was done really seamlessly. And I thought that was very cool because it's like, that's why his voice changes, because now he is 90% like cheek muscle. He has no neck and he's covered in armor. So I did enjoy that transition moment. I really liked the original design of Ensaba Nur. I like the idea that those like, what would you call them, like lip lines? Like he's got a strong blue lip.
Yeah,
but like
the mouth lines, like lip line shaped. I think it's Aztec art, which is the character design from Jackson Guise and Walt Simonson later, and looking at that Mesoamerican art and thinking, oh, that's where that face comes from. And I thought that was such a cool Jack Kirby-ish kind of thing to do.
Yeah.
To go to art from around the world, to have it inform characters that you're designing. And
yeah, it gets into this,
yeah.
like, and again, it's sort of like trying to be delicate around this. Like, it is essentially, it is a kids slash young adult slash new adult, thing based on decades of work, some of which is problematic. Often, like, they're doing the best like everybody's doing the best they can to try and make a thing. Doesn't always hit the mark. I super like it. I think that, like, it is funny thinking about Jack Kirby line work and circles and celestial tech and the Kirby crackle, all sort of like being this gateway to being able to synthesize like design, which I suppose synthesizing world design, like, one can also be like, okay, well, that's also kind of a 90s art project with its own connotations. I don't think anything came off as like an evil version of, like, international coffee house style, or, God help you, a rainforest cafe. But, like, I think I think it came out looking really cool. I think that dealing with the idea of ancient Egypt being guided, even an alternate reality one, being guided by space alien super technology is walking into really hazardous territory.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like some of these things I think are telegraphed this really interesting synthesis of design motifs, and it looks really cool, and they did the job right. Because it's also, it's got to look like super science, and then it's sort of like, okay, all right, well, it's time to wrap up Egypt, everybody. Let's get back to another timeline.
No, like, all of the source material definitely, it was the 60s, when Jack Kirby was in this. Well, actually, no, he was doing this in the 70s when Jack Kirby was really starting to explore some more of these themes in his own comics. Was a time where there were certainly a lot of white people convinced that all of these cool things that happened in non-European cultures that were from early history were clearly inspired by aliens, which, if you explain it that way, is obviously racist. But it was an excuse, but it also became a way that artists, like, really, especially Kirby, to bring those visual elements into popular culture in a serious way. So on the one hand, they're like elevating this art and art style to a public that might not have seen it really otherwise.
No,
Like,
and I agree, and it's sort of
but it's still,
Yeah.
but it's like, but there's Egypt and there's no Egyptians. Like, it's this crazy fucking
right,
alternate reality with no black people.
It is this alternate reality of, like, we're gonna set it in ancient Egypt because that's what it is, but it's obviously been twisted and contorted all to all get out by He Who Remains slash Ramatut slash Kang slash Q, Ramaquat, and it's just like, I like, at that point it's sort of like, all right, well, this is sort of like this is a historical Never Land. But it does, the fact that, like, they've also grounded it's the Never Land with ancient Egypt and Holocaust survivors going back to ancient Egypt to deal with evil. It's like we're starting to, like, wade into, like, really murky territory, and part of me was like, man, this looks so cool, and, like, the drama and the thing and the ethical dilemmas, and it's also serious and grand and great, and oh no, Charles's boyfriend, I'm so sad. But then it's also like, yeah, politically, this is, I don't think the show is capable of supporting the weight of this, which is kind of like, it's almost too bad, because the first season, like carried the load in this really incredible way. Like, they were dealing with some really, like, kind of, like, difficult themes, and they stuck the landing. And I feel like this one, it's getting a little bit over its skis. And don't get me wrong, I still enjoyed it. But again, I think coming at it as a designer, sort of like over centuries, like those waves of becoming interested in Egyptology, like, you get Art Deco, and then, also like a lot of really other awful shit, including, some aspects of Art Deco. And then it happens again with modernism, and it happens with Cubism. And so, like, you have, like, all these different elements coming together to create new art forms and new world art forms. But there is this very long history of colonialism and oppression, which was happening even into the day of those, like, arts making, and its legacy still carries on today. But again, at the same time, it is still an avenue to even discover that those things existed in their original form and spark imagination and learn about history. So it's like, oh boy, it gets really into the weeds.
That was excellent. Thank you. This is exactly why I love having you on the show. So what did you think about Magneto's death again, and the heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching reaction of his ex-husband?
It's just like, no, they just got back together again. I mean, we don't know how long they were in, ancient times. Were they there for months? I'd like to think years. Probably not.
No, Yeah, Rogue's hair still looks good, so it couldn't have been that
yeah,
long.
it hasn't frizzed out all to get out. Yeah, no, it's like, oh, why you done do that?
Yeah.
And his sort of his last sacrificial act of saving Charles rather than trying to bury him in the middle. And it's like, okay, well, somebody learned a lesson. I guess that's cool.
I think Magneto almost sort of turning himself into a black hole is interesting because it gives him a space to crawl out of later. And there's a magnetism black hole, like I see where they drew that visual from.
Yes, the classic sort of black hole side silhouette, super cool looking.
And I think it's sort of good best metaphor for this hunger that is for justice, that you keep trying to make it real and you end up pulling yourself into it and destroying yourself too.
I like that. Yeah, I feel like, you know,
Which
the master of magnetism. I like the idea of like starting to talk about like the different fundamental forces, and it's like, oh, Magneto's really, he's really powerful, right? Got it, cool. But it's like he also, like, you know, I feel like he hungers for a lot of things, and I feel like his appetites are a mess. So in a lot of ways, this final act is a little bit of clarity coming from him.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I also, you know, he dies trying to save a whole ton of just regular baseline humans in the distant past.
Just people.
Not even like New Yorkers who he's lived among, or like, you know, like Jewish people and Romani people of the Holocaust. No, just like random Egyptian people who he has no particular personal connection from. And just like it felt like the whole show had almost forgotten that there was just like all of these randos out there, but Magneto did not forget, and Magneto died to save all of those randos from the Bronze Age, and that's very heroic.
Or I guess sort of these super metal future alloys age that was imposing itself upon the Bronze Age,
the future alloy,
confusing way.
But basically that it shows you this character growth, that because those are not we know those aren't mutants. We know those are people, you know. I have heard some complain about Professor X's, you know, telling Apocalypse that his mother was right to abandon him. They're like, oh, I can't believe Professor X would say that. I'm like, guys, Professor X is trying to get Apocalypse to kill him. I don't know why this isn't obvious to you.
You know, he is, you know, a person too, and is sort of like, you know, wants to go join his man. I personally felt that was obvious, but I also understand that there can be other interpretations of things. It is a cruel and cutting thing to say, and also, of course, Apocalypse being the masterful bastard that he is, you know, decides that the coolest thing that he could do is just step over him and keep walking. So
what a powerful visual. Oh my God, my heart fucking broke for Charles. Good God. And on that note, back in the 1990s, meanwhile, and again, I love how you sort of get this cut to Nathan where it's like, oh, this is why he's like this. For those who don't know, am the world's biggest X Factor fan. And my X Factor fam has never been quite this unconflicted in their government stoogery, but I'll take it because I never thought we'd be getting a full credit sequence of just X-Force and a full credit sequence of just X Factor, because I love those fucking 90s guys. For folks who don't know, like, X Factor was just like my series when I was in junior high. I'm from the DC area originally, and that there was a mutant team who worked for the government and were trying to sort of negotiate doing the right thing inside of the system was just like everything that I wanted as a child of government employees who was queer and trying to figure shit.
Next on X Bureaucrat.
And I love that particular cast.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm trying to understand. I mean, like, they didn't even have Quicksilver in this one, but they did have Multiple Man, who, if folks want to know my thoughts about Multiple Man in depth, you can listen to the episode of Cerebrocast that I guested on, where I talked entirely about Multiple Man. But I was so excited to see my characters, even if they were all having a heel turn, like all of them.
Just all sudden.
And total heel. But I'm okay, because like if you have one episode to talk about X Factor, them being government stooges who are putting mutants into camps is the shortest way to handle that, you know?
Yeah, it is funny. I made the joke about ex bureaucrats, but as I recall vaguely from this time period, like the original X Factor, and then a lot of the spin-offs of like the investigation body, a lot like that
Yeah.
basically was what it was, right? There were a bunch of ex bureaucrats, and even like X Force was kind of ex bureaucrats for a while. It was just sort of like a lot of procedural stuff, and I love procedural. I didn't really read a lot of it, but I do remember the visuals, and they were cool. So that's my contribution to it. Oh, I
Yeah, I mean,
also
yeah.
well, yeah, I want to also. I think I promised you this earlier. My spouse, when the all new, all different theme song came up, created an all new, all different theme song to go along with it. And I promised I would sing a couple of bars of it. It's
Please.
really class. It's a cable and 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 so on.
That is true. Yeah, I mean, like, the biggest fan service in the world is doing a credit sequence for each of those teams, and I just don't fucking care because it's great animation. It's characters we like, haven't seen on stage as much. But yeah, like historically speaking, X Factor have only been the kind of mutants who work for the government and round mutants up and put them in camps for a tiny period of time. When I was reading them and loving them, they were really more of a liaison who was trying to figure out, like, how do you de-escalate the government, like
from doing
those things. Yeah, exactly. They're like
things,
they're basically they're just team harm mitigation, you know. Which again you can question, but it's not like straight up evil. But yeah, I'm fine with them doing it this way because who has time? It was cool to have Emma Frost show up the way she did. Of course, she's still evil in her cocaine phase now. Loved the costumes they had for Jubilee and Cable and Sunspot to go visit her nightclub of evil.
Yeah, of evil, in quotes, in parentheses.
But yeah, like, you know, Jubilee is not an obvious fit for X-Force. X-Force has always been the violent paramilitary version of X-Factor. I'm sorry, of X-Men. But I think it made sense to put her in there given where that she was last season. And we don't have and Jubilee is basically Boom Boom now. So if Boom Boom's not there, then Jubilee will be Boom Boom from X Force.
It's a pretty good swap, and I really enjoyed also like a lot of the characters in the background. You know, of course, you know my boy Quentin Quire made a little guest appearance.
Oh yes,
along with a bunch of people from some of the more relatively recent runs of you know life in the X Mansion. Yeah.
Oh, can I just say my only critique about Quentin is that they had him in a Phoenix t-shirt when he should have been wearing a Magneto was right t-shirt.
That does seem like a huge, I guess maybe like it's just like, oh, too soon. Or they, you know.
Well, I mean, he wears a Phoenix shirt later, but at this point in his character arc, he's got to, like, oh, he should be in a Magneto was right shirt, but that's okay. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, I love having the two teams get pit against each other. If there's one thing the X-Men do a lot, is have internal fighting, and the show hadn't really gone that route yet. Like going and having them go on a quest to defeat war and use some of Sunspot's knowledge of like Brazil, which makes sense to have him help track them down and see people be really disgusted at them literally shooting this prisoner. But the way you have like Angel put it, he's already dead. This is a mercy. He's sort of the only person who could possibly sell this to you, a viewer.
Right.
And yet it doesn't sell
and it doesn't sell Jubilee. Because he's still alive after his turn as Death. And then also, I don't know, I do appreciate like, you know, the Jubilee's expressions telegraphed and just like, oh, I've made a terrible mistake.
So we have the government who's putting mutants in cages, and literally all the mutants
floating
we see
cages,
locked up
flying cages,
are children, are like, they're all children. They're all sad children. I see you there, iBoy. And I, you know, I'm glad that Jubilee gets to remind her captors why, you know, she does it. But I do you think that like Cable was just confident that she would let herself get free, or was he doing well, you know, you can't go back for every soldier. We have to move forward.
That's the great thing about a gruff, like stoic, taciturn character saying something like that, where it's like, Okay. Yeah, I totally believe she could get out the whole time. That's definitely what I believed, and not. Well,
And not cutting my losses.
not cutting my losses like a soldier from the future, a really bad one.
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah.
my guess is based on how it all rolled out, that he had confidence in her, having worked with her for years at that point, both in like the original run of the show and also the more recent one. Um,
But yeah, still ultimately think that because you could see he would have to have known that she would have freed the kids, and he clearly was surprised at having to pick up those kids. I think, and so I actually kind of think he was being the gruff soldier. But I'm glad that the show gave us a chance to see Jubilee just show off how much she's learned, how powerful she's become, what a badass she is. And whenever people were trying to be like, with her power set, and why were those soldiers all standing around for her to kick them? I'm like, shut up, I don't care.
Yeah, I don't. Well, you start getting into power sets and power scaling. It's like you scratch that, and then immediately under the surface, it's just sort of garden variety, like sexism. It's just like,
Yeah.
come on. Yeah. She shoots colorful stuff around, but you can use any power to use. Like, just I don't know. I feel honestly like modern shows like My Hero Academia have sort of like done good work showing that like it doesn't matter what power you're given to start with. Sure, there's probably going to be one person whose power is all the powers or blah blah blah, but it's like it really just is what you do with them that matters. And she has been trained, as they always said in the comics, to Olympic levels of fill in the blank.
That's so true.
Just what does that mean? What is she's gonna?
They did such a great job animating her powers.
Oh, it's super cool.
And reminding you why she's got those sunglasses. That's not just because she's cool.
Yeah, it's because she is basically like doing the sparks that come out of an arc welder at people. You need the sunglasses. You need them. I also like a little note. I think it could be read that like now she's got like neat rollerblades in her shoes. So that she can move around stuff. And based on just the continuity of the cartoon, pretty sure she picked up that from her computer analog in the Mojoverse. So I thought that was really cool. She's like, superpower rollerblades. That goes along with my whole aesthetic. I'm going to use that.
You were the one who pointed out to me what song she was skating to.
Yeah, pretty good. Anytime they don't immediately reach for the in quotes low hanging fruit, I'm always happy. It's Veruca Salt's Volcano Girls, which as I recall was pretty much like that's up to date from that time period. Good use of actual contemporary music in the show, although probably at that point it's 98, but who cares? It's still cool.
I like that they chose a song that was by, not only was it not low hanging fruit, it was also, it felt like a band Jubilee would know. Like they didn't go for like the most obscure, like it wasn't like Bratmobile. Like I know Jubilee lives in New York, but like I don't think she's like going to Riot Girl shows.
Yeah, no, and like she's got pop sensibilities, so it's sort of like the altist version of that, like the very edge of that, like sort of moving into Riot Girl is sort of like yeah.
And I know you have a lot of, or at least in various parts of the Sometimes Kingdom, your tabletop role playing game, you've had a number of '90s alt rock girl bands.
Rock girl. So we try and pepper. So we often describe the Sometimes Kingdom RPG out now from Stillfleet Studio as it's the Venture Brothers meets the Phantom Tollbooth, which is a shockingly accurate depiction of both the rule set and the general vibe of it. So I try and whenever I'm doing play and sort of encourage people to just make as many god awful music puns as humanly possible. And it's funny because right now, in terms of like the arc for players, the current arc is set at the end of the 70s and it is now barreling into the 80s. And then, after next year, it is going to be the 90s. And again, like people can play the game in any era. But it is sort of like, it is always an excuse to try and like mine sort of like the other tracks or like the kind of music that is just perfect for the particular character in a particular era who has vaguely heard of Earth and has a robust black market of albums, records from another planet.
Well, as somebody who always likes to play a bard or bard type character in games with offering such a thing, in part because I feel like I need to force people to listen to the music I want to have them play. I'm very excited that this is part of the game you've designed that's sort of like built in those ways.
The most recent live play that we had, it was a two-parter to celebrate the release of the new print product, the Sometimes Kingdom Zine one, Monsoon. At the very tail end of it mentioned that a new person sort of coming in, and it might be a bit of a discontinuity time-wise, but who cares? Because it's people are starting to really enjoy an Earth bard named Frederick the Mercurial, and that's sort of like people are just stunned by it. It's just something totally new.
Frederick the Mercurial, I love it. So, Jubilee gets to do that badass dead drop off the side of the helicarrier and her confidence, and she knows that Sunspot's going to grab her, so she's not going to...
I love that. She's like, yeah, my man's going to grab me. It's no problem.
And her really showing that they can be a leader. And I don't know, maybe Nathan did know that she was about to rescue all those kids because he's saying kids are a lot tougher than you think. I don't know. Maybe I should give him more credit.
Maybe that is an allusion to his rocky childhood. I was born, and 5 minutes later, I was infected with a techno-organic virus. From there, I commandeered a spaceship in the future. But there were some good times. It's like, whoa, dude.
That's the darkest, pretty heavy.
darkest Rob Liefeld's backstory possible.
It is. I know. He's on his first date, and so far only Domino is like, yeah, I hear you. Not... Yeah. Same, buddy. Same. Same.
Yeah. Righteous.
Everybody else is just like, I can't deal with this.
What? Yeah. I think I do remember fondly, I think it was a later season of the original run of the X-Men cartoon show. There was another episode where Jubilee and a group of kids were trapped under the caverns of the X-Mansion. And so she kept them calm and rescued them. And so this is like, and obviously being an X-Men for some time at this point, like even as a junior member and now a full member, saving children is that's not her first rodeo, but I feel like because she's young, sort of looking out for these people now has maybe become a passion for her. And I thought that was really cool to telegraph that.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully Lorna will beat the fuck out of Alex and or second rate Scott, and they will stop being government toadies. I think
Stormers, yeah.
I think there's going to be some Squirts. I love it. I think there's probably going to be some more with them in the next as the season continues. I suspect. So I love and I'm obsessed, and I have all too much to say about the last episode that we've seen so far together, which is episode 5, Weapon X Lies and DVDs, which for the uninitiated is also a reference to the Sex, Lies, and Videotapes, which was an independent film, Soderbergh, that was really groundbreaking at the time, as well as being an X-Men story reference. I love that we got that fun teaser, the one before, where we see Logan getting the paperwork of the file from Cap. And you just know you're about to get a Logan, a Wolverine inside story.
Yeah.
It was a nice sort of break in the season to do that. And they open up with a scene that, like, the second I saw Kane rambling really enthusiastically and I heard some background rock music in the helicopter, I immediately started whooping and cheering because I was like, oh my God, it's Predator. And then I proceeded to make everybody who I had spoken with about the show watch that entire sequence from Predator, the Predator helicopter scene, which, as you pointed out, Ethan, is correct. If you're actually on a helicopter, you can't hear anybody talk.
Well, no, I can't remember. I'm assuming that they have them wearing the little headphones things with the dealy bopper. I mean, they should... Even
with that, and look, in Predator, they're not. In Predator, we've got, they're just blasting on a tape deck, Long Tall Sally at full volume, talking dirty jokes and passing around the eye black to get ready for their invasion team. And it's just sort of like having Kane be there and just like, basically he's like the heavy arms guy. So like, in Predator, you have Jesse the Body Ventura plays the heavy arms guy in Predator, the classic 1980s action horror thriller alien movie, and he's like just in the plane chewing tobacco, trying to get the other guys in the back of the helicopter to chew with him. They're all like, no thanks. And he goes, you guys are a bunch of insert slur.
Yeah.
This stuff will turn you into a sexual Tyrannosaurus. Sorry. This stuff will turn you into a sexual Tyrannosaurus like me. And all I can think of now is like Sauron.
Yeah. What is if I don't want to cure cancer? I want to turn people into dinosaurs.
I mean, that's not the kind of sexual Tyrannosaurus they were talking about, Sauron. But still, kids, don't do chewing tobacco.
Don't do chewing tobacco or use slurs or both of them simultaneously.
Don't be like Jesse the Body Ventura's character in Predator, because you will be killed by the Predator. That's not a spoiler. Everybody knows
Speaking of sexual Tyrannosaurus, the tension between Wolverine and Sabretooth could be cut with a knife. And I'm so glad that Morph was there to constantly point it out.
Oh my God. So Morph, first off, I love that the non-binary queer character is the character who's our POV character for the series. That's the audience identification character. Like the show knows that you, the audience, are not looking to be like, I'm Wolverine, the way like an 8-year-old, might feel like that. No, the show, the people making the show are like, no, you're the nerdy, smart aleck, non-binary character. And boy, are they right.
Yeah, just what a delight. Like the only sane queer person in that entire messy double helicopter ride. And I do love the super awkward ride in it is sort of just like a cast of characters, like each one of them had their own dramatic arc. In the original series, we found out some nice little like narrative like lore nuggets about what happened after Creed was forcibly airdropped into Daddy's yard. Turns out he didn't kill him. Bunch of other stuff. And then it's just sort of like, the awkward silence of a bunch of exes being in the same space. It's just like, it's like a wedding. It's just
so
awful.
so much. And you had to put Morph in there. You had to give Morph the opportunity to totally read Sabretooth and have everybody cheer for them for having totally taken down that schmuck a peg. And I was thinking though, like Wolverine recoils so much at being accused of giving Morph puppy dog looks that I'm like, that feels like, why is he so upset? And then I was, oh, dog Logan. Logan does not like being compared to dogs or puppy dogs because of his evil brother dog Logan. And that is my explanation.
Don't know that continuity at all.
It is Wolverine origins, which is something we should all pretend never happened. But now I have just helped you make sense of why Wolverine seemed to be so upset.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Giving him puppy dog eyes.
Well, I mean, continuities like Scott Summers has a Fred Durst brother with like, cool ass claws coming out of his knuckles and a backwards red baseball cap and a goatee. We all know this canon. He should be the next major villain run.
He's not Fred Durst. He's more like Lane Staley from Alice in Chains. But anyway, all the X's, it's awkward. I love that they give all of these moments where Deathstrike sort of tries to have like a just between us girls talk with Morph about like, not girls, non-binary in both cases. Let me be clear about Deathstrike's like, he's not, you don't actually want that meaning Wolverine. That's a mess. Like that will hurt you. Don't do that.
And Morph is like, oh no, I really, really want that mess. I want that mess. I want it to be my mess. And it's this episode is just one long disillusionment of it. And it's like all of the violence, all of the terror, all of that is not the thing that turns them away at the end. It is, of course, Wolverine emotionally dicking them around.
And I am so glad, because here's the thing. I think it was you and I who were saying this last season, but it's awesome that the show is letting us have Morph be a queer character, use they, them pronouns in the bio, be non-binary, we all see this series and say, Wolverine and Morph have definitely hooked up, but we all know that Marvel corporate is not going to allow Wolverine to kiss a person who is not a cis woman on the mouth in anything that they release. And so because we don't want to just have an endless tortured, sad, gay story for our friend Morph, what we all have been hoping for is for Morph to eventually get over their I don't want to say it's one directional, because one, Wolverine does care about Morph, and two,
deeply.
They've definitely fucked. But that it's not an imbalanced relationship.
It is an imbalanced relationship. I mean, I did deeply appreciate the Morph cutting down Sabretooth on the helicopter. It's like, bitch, I don't give a shit about you. You can't do nothing to me.
But the point is that we, regardless, like we know that they're never gonna let Morph and Wolverine be a couple. Ergo, the best we could hope for was for Morph
him to get over his
to have
ex yearning.
breakup. Yeah. Yes, exactly. It was to get Morph to have Morph get over their yearning for their ex.
Yeah.
And this episode,
ex yearning,
set the XX yearning. So we now have set up a future where Morph can have a relationship with a character who Marvel will allow to be queer. So
place your bets, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone.
And the rest of us. Yes. And I actually was going to hold this for the end, but we'll do this now before I go back to geeking out about 80s movies. I mean, Ethan, of the characters that Marvel will allow to be queer on camera, who do you think Morph should be in a relationship with?
I mean, that's tough. It is, again, because they've introduced them as a, like, as a youth, it's not going to happen. So you can't really do it. Like, I feel like were the ages matched, like Quentin Quire and Morph would just be an absolute disaster, and that would be very fun to watch. But that's not going to. It's not on the cards.
Oh man,
that's really who are you gunning for?
Well, so I was thinking a little bit, and I'd like to give Morph a big ticket partner because Morph is, part of a lead cast member.
Yeah.
And so the biggest name X-Men queer character who there could be, who's not a bad person, because that's the thing. A lot of the characters that Marvel allows to be queer are like kind of morally ambiguous people. The one person who's on the up and up is Iceman. So whether or not
Bobby Drake,
whether or not I feel vibes for them, Iceman's not a bad guy and is queer. So
I mean, they'd be quipping so fast, other people would just, they'd have the back of the X-Plane entirely to themselves while they crack jokes about the jokes that the other one is cracking. It would be insufferable. It'd be fantastic.
That's so true. That is absolutely.
I very much like that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I like that. I was really just thinking about it from like a, not even personality, just like positioning with regards to how the cast works.
If
right.
If Morph really wanted to be like, like Morph and like some alternate reality Rachel Summers who looks astonishingly like Jean Grey, that would just be an amazing fuck you to Wolverine.
Oh God, yeah, it would be. Except, I mean, I think Logan and Jean have probably hooked up, and Jean is her. It might, but Jean's not Rachel's mother, so I hear.
We're getting into like Greek tragedy levels, and especially with prophecy and time travel. It's just like, I hope everybody's all caught up on who everybody else is, or this is going to turn out.
Iceman, it is.
No problematic
solution.
Age gaps. No
secretly evil. No,
not accidentally pulling an Oedipus. It's perfect.
Exactly. So, although listeners,
Extipus.
We will be talking about these series again. Send in who you think Morph should date next. I want to hear your thoughts. Because like the other big high profile like bi character is like Daken, who is not good at dating. Like it just gets more Oedipal as time goes on.
That just raises further questions. I like the idea that there's an increasingly bad list of people, and there must be, like, you could put the quadrants together of who is like the most, like, New York Mag style, like awesome / worse for each other. Like that's the one that should probably choose.
Yes. So back to the 80s movies. The
80s movies.
This episode, which is very much a tonal break, a tonal shift, but we don't even know it at first. I mean, I did not know that they were going to go full into The Thing and aliens. Like, just beginning from Predator enough, they go into The Thing and aliens. It's a massive tonal shift. They're going into some classic 80s, just action, horror, sci-fi movies, in very direct ways, to the point where my spouse, the one who did not recognize Rachel Summers, recognized that it was about to be The Brood, like about a full minute before I realized it was about to be The Brood. And I was just like, applause to you, buddy.
Yeah.
I think the show has used a lot of different kinds of film tropes, much in the same way that, I mean, the Brood are already aliens. Like that is
and right hot off of the like, vague H.R. Giger, 80s ripoff or 90s rip. Like, I
Yeah.
loved the Brood. We were talking about this earlier. Like I was growing up, I didn't really see a lot of the action horror movies that my compatriots in my age were already like ways deep into. Because I was a jumpy little bunny child. So I had to sort of catch up on it, and I got a lot of that stuff third hand.
Hmm.
I got it through video games, and I got it through comics, and then eventually those movies were too scary for me, but the art of H.R. Giger apparently wasn't. So that's sort of like I wound up like
Really?
through
Oh.
ripoffs of ripoffs of ripoffs. I wound up getting some of the original source material,
Hmm.
like on the art side. Like that's the sort of stuff that like those sort of experiences of experiencing stuff like that, like so third hand, like was such a common experience for me that like it eventually became like the bulk of the stuff that I wrote about in college for like lit papers and transmedia papers, because I just find discovering adaptations of adaptations of adaptations such an interesting way to stumble back into original source material or not.
Mm.
When I was younger, I would call Brood stuff and like the kind of things that you'd see, I'd call it Contra Giger, like after the video game
Mm.
series Contra, which itself was a ripoff of those movies, like combining it all
Yes.
together with very Brood like alien faces and walls that had tentacles and rib cages and all sorts of cool stuff. So it's like that aesthetic to me is like in this weirdly I'm weirdly nostalgic for that really grotesque thing.
Yes. What did you think about all the neon green bloody body? Not even bloody, it's neon green body horror from this episode.
I think neon green was a good punt. I it is so funny because this is a much more adult version in some ways, a version of the original show, from from actual '90s. But I feel for me, we talked about this a little bit before the show. Like I found the tonal shift a little bit too jarring because I again didn't grow up watching these movies, so I didn't really get I didn't see the telegraphing of where they were going, even as they have like a helicopter literally full of seasoned brutal killers all going into a forbidden government laboratory in an isolated area. I still was like, oh, Captain America was here, that's cool.
Aw.
So like when it happened I was like, this is very different. And so I feel like tonally I wasn't really expecting it, nor did I super enjoy the tonal shift for the episode. As I've had some time to think about it, like I thought it was a cool summation of a whole lot of stuff altogether.
Hmm.
I enjoyed Acid '90s Green and its return.
Hmm.
I feel like there was some body horror stuff in there that like part of me was just thinking about young viewers. And granted, like we showed the destruction of Genosha
Yeah.
in the last season, but it's again it's that sort of thing of like, how do I put this? Like you can do a lot of horrible, shocking things, and if there's gravitas and meaning attached to it, you're sort of like, well, that was horrible, but I'm feeling feelings. And then like
Hmm.
suddenly you've got a group of people and you're playing it for shock value and laughs. I'm like, that's very different. And I
Mm.
get that it's a bottle episode. And also like from a literary or like a character perspective, that's just how these characters experience the world. So it's all actually good or like writing. We're seeing this world from their perspective. But it sort of
Mm.
rocketed me back to a time period of like comics where it was like, that kind of just was comics for a while, and I kind of checked out to lunch until like quite a while later.
Yeah, I think that's a legitimate thing. I mean, for me, it felt like a good break from what we'd had, but I absolutely understand
Mm-hmm.
perspective. And I think if I had kids, I don't know how I'd feel about this for the kids.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm just sort of trying to imagine my parents dealing with me as a 9-year-old watching this. It wouldn't have been great. Would not have been great. But hey, it's 2026. And it's also just like Disney Plus has the entire Alien franchise now. So
oh God, that's right.
and the new show was excellent. So I don't know who's to say what's for whom these days in this modern era of ours. Um, I
Well,
I
you
did
had,
I
yeah.
did like the horror vibes in terms because horror
Hmm.
sci-fi is great. I love it. I draw it professionally. I like immediate in it because I finally have acquired a taste for it decades after my like young teen years.
Hmm.
Um, but I did find it sort of like a very abrupt shift, redeemed I think by like some emotional beats that sort of brought it all home.
Well, you had another very personal complaint, though, about something that happens in the episode about your blorbo.
Yes, oh my goodness, yes. Okay, that's this I often like yeah, people die in comics. It's they do it for shock value, whatever. Like everybody's sort of like and then when your little blorbo gets hit, you're just like, no, they done it dirty. Like there was an interstitial, not interstitial, that's not the right word. There was like one of the CDs or DVD, whatever time period, whatever
It's a DVD. It's a DVD.
whatever kind of laser disc they were using to look at the media, the DVD. Yeah. They were showing, they were running tests on mutants and people to perfect the brood or whatever. And my boy Maggot was in there, and I was just like, oh man, they done Maggot dirty. I was like, oh man, this is the first time we've seen him on television, and this is what happens. That sucks.
Well, I should not be surprised that somebody who has made an entire book about a fictional neuroskeletal system's favorite mutant is Maggot, whose superpower is having his intestines on the outside.
Yeah.
That's all very Ethan coded.
Well, I think on two levels. One, it's like, it's cool and it's gross. He's got blue skin. They were trying to make him be a cool character at a time where they were very, trying to make cool characters for teens, and they succeeded in that one, I guess, for whatever reason, landed for me. It's the cool biomechanical thing going on. But I think also, like, it's the same reason that I really like Strong Guy as a character. It's like, it is a character who has to deal with a chronic condition and chronic pain. And I always like seeing characters like that. It feels like it's good representation of this sort of thing as somebody who has dealt with that extensively over a long period of time, like starting in my late teens. Seeing sort of any kind of example of, it's like, well, mutants can be hot, but they also have to deal with like painful physical conditions. And it's like, yeah. Sorry, character, you're taking one from me and my psychological well-being. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that your Blurbo got turned into a disgusting brood embodiment chamber.
They could put a little title post-credits thing where it's like, in parentheses, like, he got better later. It's not going to happen.
If only. But yeah, I'm trying to imagine that I know that could be sad to see.
Yeah. But it's more sad. It's like, oh man, it's like, now I can't get on a high horse when somebody else's Blurbo gets nerfed in a little side thing. It's just like, well, it just sort of certainly feels just like, wow, death being played for laughs. There's a lot of collateral damage when that's happening.
Kane's death is played for laughs, but I don't think that Maggot's death is played for laughs. I think it's horror.
No, you're right.
It's like real horror there.
It's real horror. It's mediated horror, which is a great 90s thing, like media in media. And it's a good way to drop necessary plot information video game style.
I love this quote from Dr. Cornelius. He's like, concern for my staff's well-being outweighs such curiosity, which is like,
no,
at a certain point, the investors said, okay, bitch, where's my money? And he's like, I'm going to start testing stuff on my lab assistants now.
Let's see what happens. You can't,
never works out well for you.
Yeah. It's the real brood is the shareholders. Anyway.
Yes. The real brood is the shareholders that harmed us all along the way.
Yeah. No, I think ultimately, like, I think I just wasn't expecting the episode, so it sort of felt like kind of off for me. And now with the benefit of a week or so of memory, it's sort of, I think, fading into like, yeah, this is an episode of the show that is going well.
I liked how they have smart Sabretooth. Like, that Sabretooth is the one who figured out what Wolverine's real goal was. He deduced that. It was interesting beat for him. It shows you that this is a man who's been really studying and hunting this other man.
Yeah, he's, when you're that obsessed with somebody else, I guess his fixation he's like, yeah, what is it? He's like, he's 200 plus or whatever. It's like, hey, yeah. I do like it also. It's like he has picked up a huge multitude of skills and gets to hide behind his feral looks and nature so nobody suspects him. And then Wolverine is still Wolverine.
And speaking of motivations, I'm glad that they kept Lady Deathstrike's motivation to be about her father's legacy and her father's technology. So she's not there because she's like, wow, I'm Wolverine's ex-girlfriend. No, fuck that. She's there because she's worried about her father's research and science and legacy. So I like that they kept that true to her rather than having her just be like a simpering ex-girlfriend,
Yeah, that's super cool. And I honestly, I had totally forgotten all of that sort of like backstory until they started bringing it up in the episode, and I was like, oh yeah, dim and distant memories of that. Yeah, okay, I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, and it's also, you get the sense that like Wolverine and Lady Deathstrike, they're like, Lady Deathstrike is now at this point where she's had these powers for a while, and Wolverine is, God, talk about age gaps. He's like, also centuries old at this point. And it's sort of like they've reached that period. It's like, yeah, well, that was a bad relationship, and that sucks. We've got some good memories, we've got some bad, but now we're on a job just killing things. So here we go.
Well, something else interesting about Lady Deathstrike is the voice actor who's playing Lady Deathstrike in this. Somebody told me this. I was not familiar with their work. Erika Ishii is gender fluid, and so this like connection that, and with Lady Deathstrike as a character also is like literally transhuman in a lot of ways. And so I actually especially like them sort of trying to nurture morph away from the Wolverine fixation, because it's also, I mean, in some ways, like it's a non-binary character and another non-binary character connecting. Yeah. Not saying that I'm not saying that because a non-binary actor plays a certain character, their character is also non-binary. But I do think in a world where an non-binary character is playing an android,
yeah,
it's
like
not a big
cybernetically extended kill lady.
It's not a big stretch that maybe this cyborg that Erika is playing is maybe not a cis woman. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I thought that was a cool bit of continuity for the voice actor.
Listen. Don't just, you're better than that over there. That jerk that
like,
smells.
I've been there. I know. I understand why you're into Logan, but please do not do this to yourself. So that was a great performance also. But yeah, for anybody who's listening to this hasn't watched Predator, The Thing, or Aliens, those are classics for a reason. They're like legitimately good movies. I guess content warning for casual 80s sexism and homophobia in Predator, but yeah, that movie fucking
and that'll be completely washed away if you just go watch Alien.
Well, this actually is more of a riff on Aliens than Alien, because
you're right. So I guess in terms of like this particular episode, I really did like the final beat a lot. It's like Wolverine jerked around a really good friend of him who he obviously knows has a massive crush on him, possibly also somebody that has like that he is fooled around with. And it is just like, that's a really mean thing to do. He was doing it to get, like, he wanted to get back into top shape so that he could be more effective. It is honestly, side note, like a way better version of how he got his adamantium back than like the really convoluted, janky version that happened originally. No disrespect to the original writers and authors. It's just, some evil scientist finding a guy who has adamantium, taking this adamantium by killing the guy, then forcibly doing the blah blah with the so-and-so. I vaguely remember it. And maybe it was voluntary. I can't remember. But this all seems like it all happened pretty quickly, but then I have to remember that like the last season came out last year. So not quickly.
I mean, yeah, I feel like if Wolverine had just told Morph what this was about, Morph would have supported.
Yes, it was. I think the point is like his lack of trust, and the moment when like Morph maybe starts their infatuation like dimming somewhat, looking out the window, and like Wolverine is probably feeling some shame. Like,
oh yes,
and you that's cool to see. Yeah,
it's so well animated. Yeah, like looking at them in the reflection and the adamantium claws, like the scripting and the animation for that exchange. You have this very visually intense, just intense to the max. There's jokes, there's violence, there's gore, hit you all episode. And then some of the most striking stuff that happens in this episode is in that last minute,
100%.
Which is an exchange between these two friends, and just the actor playing Morph just nailing that doesn't that make you sad? It makes me sad, is an amazing line delivery that could have come off really like bad, but they just fucking nailed it.
It's a really good performance, and it's a really good emotional moment that like, this like, and they even like it is, and it does a lot of good, I think, like, because they even do the classic comic pose at one point with Wolverine, like with the one claw, like he's the best there is.
Yes.
What he does.
From the classics, from the Larry Hama, like the come to me, I'm going to punch you through the face.
Yeah. Page. And then it's like, and then like very in short order, undercutting it But it's like, well, that's great that you're badass, but you are unchanging and you won't change. And I'm hurt, but it's also like I am upset for you as a person who I would like to see grow, who won't, refuses to.
Yes. I'm that's a really good yeah, because like that you're right, like that's definitely a riff on that classic panel. I guess I'll try to find a way to show people that panel if you haven't seen
We're
it.
gonna
But
describe it in SCSI right now, ACT, so I could just
I'm gonna
just download my voice and we'll print out it in QWERTY characters. You can.
that would be really funny. But yeah, like again, it comes back to there's real artistry in this show. It's not just it is synthesizing tons of stuff into a cartoon, but it also stands on its own as as a really strong piece of animation and art. There's great sound design work this episode in terms of horror. Good God. So, anything else we want to wrap on this episode, or anything else we want to say about the season overall?
Oh, I did. So we didn't in the future episode we talked about the aesthetics of ancient Egypt a little bit. I mean, for me, like the super fucking future of the dystopian age of apocalypse, I felt was an like going. I can't remember which order it happened in. If it happened in future then past or past then future, but I liked like showing like in some way it's like, oh, this is awful, like it's beyond fascist to you know, giga totalitarian. You know, like that classic sort of like 70s sci-fi vibe of just like the whole world is a prison, it's run by one guy and he's got a giant head on the building, everything, like the train has got like part of him. It's just like this idea of like, and then you cut to ancient Egypt and it is sort of like that is the system that his powers were born out of, and it's the one that he is perpetuating. You declare yourself a god and you put your face on a thing. You know, that's just how he like, so it's like he is unchanging in this sort of monstrous way well into millennia in the future. But oh boy, does that dystopian architecture look cool, and it's so purple. I love it. It's got a monorail, he's got a floating thing, it's just great.
It's a powerful train. The image of the train rambling down the track so was like very much reminded me of the Mountain of Judgment from the Fourth World. But anyway, I know
I don't
not
think I know
everything is a
that
Jack
one.
Kirby reference. I mean, the Mountain of Judgment is also just like, that's my mom? Or but that's fine. This is just Jewish art.
Yeah, it's like this is just the force wall.
Well, I want to ask you one of our listener questions was sent in by the host of Is It Camp, which is a fantastic podcast that I've been on. Slam Campbell, wrestler and podcaster, asks, now that the roster of the show's expanding nicely beyond the original cast, is there any I would lose my shit if this character showed up with a title card that you would want to see? Slam mentioned Soft Surf, Lila Cheney, Jumbo Carnation. I certainly would love to have Lila Cheney because this is a show that understands music and popular culture, and I think would do right by Lila Cheney. So that would be one of mine. But for you, yeah, is there a title card that would just blow your mind?
That's a really good question. So who do you think yours would be?
Well, I'm definitely seconding the Lila Cheney that they threw out there. I mean, I don't know that my mind would be blown by Quicksilver because Quicksilver has become such a major character in the Marvel world, but I've been missing having him there, and he's absolutely one of my favorite characters. Maybe we'd get some Richter and Shatterstar around. It would be really cool.
This is a really interesting question. I feel like for me, they had a blink and you miss it moment where he was being taken in at the beginning of the season, but like having Chamber sort of show up more than just like if we're getting into Generation X, because it is now like what 98 continuity wise, like we're getting into like the late 90s and having some of their more interesting characters from that era show up. I feel like for me, like that was the Generation X run was kind of like my kind of goodbye from the series for a while, and I sort of picked it up again in the 2000s. I stopped reading comic books for a while, mostly just because I found graphic novels, and I in college sort of went back and read a bunch of like bound paper copies of a lot of the stuff I missed, but I stopped sort of like picking up like the floppies for a while. But like for me that run of X-Men felt sort of like a return to form, or like was just super cool. So like Chamber would be really cool. I mean, I don't think that like Empath and M or Monet St. Croix are like too much of a deep cut, but those would be
We
super
saw
cool.
them, I think, in jail, or we saw them briefly in something. So
Oh,
yeah, they could.
was
They
M
could.
already in it? Was
I think
that's
so. So, but yeah, but obviously she wouldn't have had a title card nor what
yeah.
chamber. So I think those are two great options for
I mean,
that.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
say no if like there was a monster of the weekend Empath and DOA like in their floating house of horrors just sort of showed up. I thought that would blow my mind because it's not a deep cut, but it is sort of it's a deep-ish cut.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to do super deep cuts in a title card. It'll be
Yeah.
medium cuts. You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
They already brought back Mojo, so that basically, that was my mind blower. Not that it was going to be that they already like introduced him in the last run in the actual 90s, so it wasn't that much of it. But I mean, they could bring in Shadowcat or Kitty Pryde. That might be fun.
See, I don't know how they. I mean, obviously I love her, but I don't know how they would do that because they've given her beats to other people so many
That's true.
times.
Jubilee is sort of been taking up a lot of that.
And Boom
Yeah.
Boom, she's both. Yeah.
Warlock, Cypher.
Oh, Cypher would be
Bring
interesting.
back Douglock. Yeah.
Yeah. They had some phalanx in the original animated series.
Yeah, Warlock was an episode palin around the Beast, which made sense.
Which right. But could always come back. But yeah, I have a lot of trust in this show to do right by the characters, and do something interesting with them. One thing I wanted to give people in case they didn't know is there's series of 6 stars that we see as a visual motif in the sky in the Egypt stuff, is also the 6 circles on the face of the Celestial, who gives their powers to Apocalypse. And that is a specific Celestial. The Celestials are some of the Caravan of the Gods, 1970s silliness, space gods that designed by Jack Kirby with beautiful art. That is specifically Eson, Eson, and Eson is also called the Searcher.
Ooh.
And I think that is like, I don't know. I'm wondering if there's some sort of significance in the Searcher being the one who gives him his powers.
That's super. So I love the Celestial design, but I think I have mostly experienced it through like I guess in the past like drunken wiki dives, or like just basically staring at the art for a very long time. So I just found out just now that that the Celestials can be differentiated from each other. That's super cool. I just saw the 6 stars and I'm like, it's a Celestial. Oh no, he's gonna get the armor. But that's very cool that they all have, Kirby armored Buckethead God roles to play in the multiverse.
Yeah. I don't know. I've always been very mixed on whether I think Apocalypse is even a particularly interesting character or just some good design work. But I think, Magneto believes in him, so I guess I believe in him too.
Yeah,
I actually. That's how it goes.
Yeah, I love. I mean, Apocalypse to me, and I think mostly it was like because John Colicos did the voice for the the 90s run of X-Men 90 whatever. That like bringing that immense like, and then like slightly vocoded and doubled over voice over, like for me it's just like sometimes you just need a bad guy who's just a brick, and that brick is also a shapeshifter, and their plan is dead simple. Like they're just like, I'm me and I want things to be me and I'm going to take over. Like that's the soul. Like there's no sort of moral code. So like seeing the degradation of a person into just like that, I think that's really great. But truth be told, if I'm being, honest, I probably was sort of snookered in by the design too. Like he's like, I have an A on my belt, but it's a coincidence. It is just a shape that looks like a thing that will later be called this word. Like it's I'm purple and I can make drills from my hand. That's what else do you need when you're 10?
He invented the power drill, actually.
He invented the power drill, the power walk, the power walk away, walking over a guy after you don't want to kill him because you just want to make him feel bad. He invented a lot of power moves.
We have one more listener question. You're going to really like this. Emily, friend of the show, asks, so the show sort of already plays a homage to Aliens, Predators, The Thing. But those are all movies that have a lot of gender critique specifically of masculinity, and then we have Morph who's being there, and Morph is non-binary and the POV character. So how does having Morph, the non-binary character, as a POV character present in these hyper-masculine movies provide a different perspective on them?
Ooh, that's a really good point.
Because there just isn't, like, there isn't someone like that isn't invited into the world of the Thing, for example, even though
right, it is like the Thing is ultimately about masculinity and paranoia destroying itself.
Yep.
Or the end result of the society that it has created leads to its own, rueful and humorous destruction. I think Alien, probably out of all of it, the character of Ripley, who, I think is this character like well played and well thought out to, be an action hero who is still like, is not taking on the trappings of masculinity to do the thing. Like she is taking on, like, if people had just simply listened to Ripley at the beginning, there wouldn't have been the series of events that happened.
Yeah.
The person who is doing everything they can to like make the necessary sacrifices, like save the child, think about her crew, like all of those things are not, I think, masculine action hero tropes, and is still an undeniably action hero from start to finish. So having Morph there with a group of people who are all real, I think it's because they're all cool and tough and hard asses. I don't know if it's too much of a stretch to say like the original run of these comics, especially with Rob Liefeld art, like it was, for me, I thought they were interesting in the sense like shoulder pads are cool. And I thought from an anatomical perspective, like, well, look at those cool figures. That's really neat. But like, I feel like personally, like that sort of stuff kind of didn't really ever land with me, because that's not like, I didn't have this, I guess gender fantasy of becoming a bulked out guy. So
yeah.
so sort of like, oh, that's interesting. Cool. That's, must be fun to draw.
They look like body horror to me. I'm just like, ooh, all of those men look really icky. I was like, that was like, I never really read any of the Liefeld stuff because I was like, I do not like the way he draws bodies. And
it's difficult to be like, because they did such great, like when it gets incredibly cartoonish, it looks really cool. It is a self-parody in some ways that I think obviously is lost on the 11-year-olds looking at it, but I think there is a sort of like aesthetic humor from it that like comes out, and it's if you're just trying to be is badass. I remember so many friends patiently drawing these cool characters with their giant triple-barreled guns, which is just aerodynamically so inefficient, even if they're shooting plasma or whatever the hell. It's just like that era of just like this orgiastic violence. Everything had to be tough and extreme and mega and everything, and it's just so silly.
But I really do like this point that, it's less of a question and more of a point really from Emily, though, that looks like having a non-binary character and possibly characters present in the middle of like Predator, for example. Yeah. There's a woman in Predator, right? She's working for the with the rebels, and she's not really much of a character, but she's present. Like having the non-binary character be there is sort of disrupts the standard order of those movies, and as a result, fewer characters seem to die. Not because non-binary people are somehow better or more moral or whatever, like we're not, but simply that it was a different kind of perspective on what was happening that made the rest of the team consider other questions. And other ways of doing
coming
things.
From a different, like, all of these characters exist in the sort of, I guess, genre envelope of adventure and American comics, and then suddenly like they inhabit this grisly world of the Merc, so they're going to go into the body horror, kill box deep underground to do the thing. And then Morph is from the X-Men, and X-Men have like seen some things, but they also have a lot of opinions about the things that they've seen. So I like the idea of this character, kind of like palling along with their best bud to try and be helpful. And then also being like, wait, what are we doing? And why are we doing this? I think that's a really good point of just like seeing it from a different perspective and a different life view of just like, and Morph has got a really dark backstory too. Like,
yes.
I think bringing Morph back to the show was a really great turn, because obviously really enjoyed the character in the original cartoon run.
Yeah, I never would have guessed that Morph would have been a character they would have brought back into this because of how they were only present in a couple of episodes the first time. But it's been great to give. In many ways, in the original series, Morph played the role of Nightcrawler because Nightcrawler had been characterized in the comics as like, oh, it's Wolverine's lighthearted friend who can make him laugh, even though he's actually also carrying a lot of darkness. But they needed someone who they could kill or quote unquote kill early in the animated series. So they were like, it's Morph. That's who we're killing. It's Morph. And then bringing Morph back and having Wolverine have to help try to they use him in the original series, regain the character's identity. I never would have thought they would have brought Morph in for this, and it's paid off just so much.
Yeah, and it was
that wonderful performance for JP Carlack.
And season one, like what a perfect way to reintroduce Mr. Sinister, like the person who got away, tried to control or turn them into this other thing, and then that version of Mr. Sinister at this point just being like the graveliest, like cattiest piece of crap, and then having him done it in a bowling alley is just kind of perfect. Like, oh, you want your camp to be evil? Well, guess what? Like, you're gonna be destroyed in a diner. But like, I think Morph being part of the team does open those sort of like avenues, and sort of like, yeah, to your point, it's like it's not that anybody is essentially better than other groups of people. But like having a different perspective coming from a different gendered genre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Different genre, yeah, as well, really, because it either isn't somebody doing that in those other movies.
And it's like every classic team, Ninja Turtles need their Michelangelo, like the Ghostbusters need their Peter Venkman, the X-Men need a Quipper. You need a Quipper on the team because everything's so serious. But then the Quipper is also like the jester has to point out truths to the king.
Yes.
And otherwise the whole thing falls apart. So having them actually play that role, sadly in a helicopter at the end. And it's honestly, it is the most cutting remark in the entire, episode, like after all of the insults being slung around. So I do like that a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, we love it. We love it. So remind our listeners where the best way for us to keep up with your work online.
Yes, I can be found wherever fine internets are sold at the handle @SpectralHouse. Also, definitely check out if you like the sense of humor of this episode. I talk like this all the time. I write like this, and I've developed an entire high fantasy world that balances a lot of the things that we have just talked about. It is the Sometimes Kingdom RPG, which is buyable right now at stillfleet.com.
When's the next live play thing you guys are doing?
We just wrapped one. I think we're going to be dropping recordings of it or a distillation of it at the Stillfleet YouTube site. The next one, the next live play is probably going to be this autumn. Or I think accompanying whenever the next edition of the zine. The zine is going to be an ongoing series as it explores all of the seasonal isles of the fictional world of Seasons Keep. It's totally fictional. It's not real. There aren't armors and portals that lead you to this fantastical place full of stylish and hardy magic mongers. It's not real. Don't get it to prepare yourself when the forces of the forest come scratching at your door.
Well, I mean, I really do love how you have this. Like, it's a fun game that's for people who like role-playing games that are like about like words and play and are not just like number crunching at all. But it's still really built like on a very sound game building structure. But yeah, there's like a climate change and capitalism critique happening.
And there sure is.
In midst of all of this cool character work and talking skeletons who are
There's fun. Talking skeletons. I guess the pitch for the game, there's some great robust mechanics. There is a high magic, word magic that you can craft on the fly using the seasonal tables of magic. A rapidly changing ecology as magic shifts in reaction to modernism, which is encroaching because the game takes place in the 20th century, that mythical land. But, also all of the former antagonists of yore in those other fantasy games have now reached parity with humans, or human folk as they're called in the game. So you can be a skeleton, you can be a demon, you can be a talking animal, a fae, and also humans who have the power of, I'm the protagonist, do an economy, and do you think this is a game?
Those are such great powers. I love that. I've enjoyed. I've been working on building out a character, and I've enjoyed the game. And I encourage folks who want to be creative in their role playing games to try out a game system that is for people who are creative and was not built as a war playing game, which is what D&D was developed to do. Was for making you
Yay,
do
battle
math.
maps.
I don't want to do math. I don't want to do math for my hobby. I don't want to do math. So, anyway.
The dice scores of the grid system take care of a lot of the math for you. Yeah, and if you ever want to try out the game, once a month, and we're going to be increasing the amount of times, on a series called Weird Wednesdays on the Stillfleet Discord server, we run the Sometimes Kingdom RPGs. We're going to start adding additional days to it, so check that out too if you want to try it out.
Well, that's great for folks who like to do their gaming online, as I do. And as for me, you can find me on Blue Sky a little bit too much. My handle is Levin. That's also a great place to come and ask questions. I know I'll be covering the second half of this season in the future, so you can also send me questions for second half of the season there. I was just interviewed for Progressively Horrified. Anyway, Ethan, thank you so much. And as we like to say to our listeners, keep it geeky.
Keep it geeky.